And the trial of former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede has been adjourned after a short appearance today. And the case involves a 320 million rand solid waste tender. We have eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah, who's at the High Court in Durban. Dasen, good morning and welcome again. Of course, very short proceedings, as we earlier spoke with regards to the witnesses fearing for their lives and potentially not wanting to participate in this matter.
That's right. In fact, we expected today's proceedings to be fairly short. When we did get into court at about 10 o'clock, there was a slight delay because the legal teams were in consultation with the judge in chambers. And when they had come out into court again, there was already an agreement that had been reached. And essentially the state saying that they are still in talks with the investigating team. So this matter has now been escalated and it's being dealt with also by the DPCI because the investigating officer comes from there. They are now discussing ways to finalize that risk assessment that needed to be done. So essentially what needed to be done after that shooting that took place at the witness's home was that they needed to meet and decide to look at the risk that would be faced, that rather all of the other witnesses would potentially face, because that fear as a result of that shooting had spread with many of the other witnesses saying, look, they were also not comfortable with coming to court to testify. That is a process that is now still being completed. We were told today by the state prosecutor that those discussions are underway, that the senior police officers and police management in KwaZulu-Natal would be personally handling this matter to ensure that they find a solution. So when all of that is complete, by Friday at least, there's expected to be a consultation between the state and the defense teams. And at this point, it looks like the trial will resume on Monday. In order for that to happen, Zandile, the state needs to reshuffle its witness list. There would have been a certain process, a strategy that it would have been following. It now needs to change that in order for the trial to proceed, because there have been already several delays, and it was stated right at the outset by the judge that she was trying to limit the delays to ensure that they maximize the court time that had been allocated to this trial, because as a whole, it is already going to be very lengthy.
And Dasen, maybe you can correct me in the sense of how then they stack up the witnesses, for lack of a better word. In other words, you'd probably have the least impactful, if you want. The first witness would just give you the lay of the land, what is going on, and then the last witness is the one that essentially would put the nail on the coffin, so to speak. Is that the case? And this is what you're referring to, that it now has to be reshuffled somehow to make room for those who are willing to testify?
So the state would be holding its cards fairly close to its chest in how it plans to lay its case out. But the strategy here is to build that case. You'll remember that the allegation or the claims that are being made here are in relation to what the state calls a criminal enterprise that was running within the eThekwini municipality. So there are various elements that they need to look at, and each of these witnesses would just be adding a block towards building this entire structure that they're trying to put together in order to show that in fact, in its view, was true. So now in order to reshuffle that, it means a number of things. One is that it needs to look at which other witnesses it can bring forward to try to complete that picture, because at this point we can't say for certain that those witnesses that would have testified will not testify at all. It's just a matter of finding out what the risk is and whether there are other arrangements that can be made to ensure that they can then testify safely. So that is still a matter under consideration. So for now, just to move it forward, they will look at bringing those other witnesses ahead. But something else that needs to happen is that the defense needs to be privy to this. They need to be prepared for whichever witnesses will next take the stand. So this is what needs to be ironed out, and they have this week to do that. But by Monday, it's expected that the trial must continue so as to prevent any further delays.
Yeah, but also what we want to know is the strength of the case and the prospects of success. And primarily, if the key element of having the witnesses testify is absent, that weakens the case for the state, doesn't it?
Essentially, it would mean that they would have to relook at how they present their case, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. You know, as they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So although they may have planned out their particular strategy in a certain way and would have had these witnesses, that is the work that now needs to be done, because at the end of it, they want a successful case, they want a successful prosecution. That's what they are aiming for. And in order to do that, they will now need to look at those ways to ensure that, A, they either get those witnesses back here and they ensure that they can do it safely, or they find other ways to ensure that that happens. So whether it weakens it, I think it's early to say just yet, but right now it would be interesting to see what plan is put in place next week and how quickly they can bring those other witnesses forward. Just to give you an example, there are other senior members of the senior employees rather of the eThekwini municipality that are expected to testify. There's also witnesses from the IFS, Integrity Forensic Services. They were that was the team that dealt with the forensic report, for example, that ultimately led to this criminal prosecution. So there are those so-called high-profile witnesses that still need to take the stand. And now it looks like they might just be moved forward, and we might be hearing those sooner rather than later.
Dasen, much appreciated indeed. That's eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah giving us an update of the case involving the former mayor of eThekwini, Zandile Gumede, and 21 other co-accused. That case has now been postponed until further details emerge in terms of the safety of the witnesses giving their deposition. But that's where we leave it.